I didn't study history to a high level, which I regret. But I was also amazed to kind of just recount to myself that my recollections of studying history in school mostly revolved around like the Crusades, World War One, the Crusades, the Second World War,
and the Tudors.
The Tudors. Oh, and the Tudors, of course. Yes, I forgot. Yeah, the costume drama of the Tudors. And, yeah.
Well, the Tudor, Henry Tudor VIII, was the last Welsh king who was born in Pembroke. He spoke Welsh as first language. Alright. Henry VIII was the father of Elizabeth I. He went to war with the Pope. You appreciate how big those genes are in Wales. His palace was Deptford. You know the Maritime College now? Do you know that building?
Where is it?
Henry VIII's palace is the Maritime College in Deptford. Greenwich. Yeah. That's where he was in Scotland. So Elizabeth I set in a pattern of motion. She didn't want the job either. She was supposed to be a boy. And that's why Henry VIII beheaded so many of his wives, because none of them would give him a boy. Elizabeth I was very instrumental in this whole idea of queenness. She invented the concept of the good queen. To quote the Beatles, Her Majesty is a pretty nice girl, I'd like to make her mine.
I mean, again, interesting to contrast that with other picturings of kind of good queens like Boudica, for example, which is like a very different kind of energy, but sort of on the same spectrum in terms of leadership, inspiration, like again, it's sort of like the counterpoint to the Arthurian thing in a way, like it's sort of somehow being very connected with the voicing of like some innate sort of truth about the people, what's going on there.
The king and queen is always a voicing of the people, because that's how it works, that's what the crown is. The physical object, the crown, is like an amplification device for collective consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps could you talk a bit more about, Charles? I was like curious. I mean, I don't really follow closely the royal family.
Well, I'll explain my interest in Charles.
The thing about him kind of being really ahead of the curve in certain, in many aspects, like, is really curious. Obviously, like, a lot of consensus issues, but like, on some levels, there's some really inspiring kind of visionary stuff again, like circling back to the kind of theme of Telos, and like some sort of a king that is able to vision like a future for the country, and someone that is in some degree, even though it may be like nuanced and contentious, connected with concerns of the land, is to me quite interesting. And I wonder like what your thoughts are on that kind of angle.
Well, that's making it personal, and I'm glad you went there. Because Charles is a human, a person, and I've got a relationship with him. I wrote a comic book back in 2006 or 8. It took 2 years to write. And it was a fairy story about me sending a letter to Prince Charles. And he was in it, and I was in it, and there was a fairy tale character called Jack who was going on an adventure to deliver a message to Charles. And he received the comic. It was one of 13 that I got printed. And I got a letter from St. James's Palace saying he's read it, but he doesn't reply to things like this.
I mean, it'd be one thing to say that we just don't respond. it's very specific to say he read it, but also no comment.
Yeah. I understood that.
I mean, that's more than you get from a lot of kind of submissions.
I'll tell you why he didn't comment, because what we were asking him to do was to stand up and be head of the Order of the Garter in public and actually rein in the police, the psychiatric services and the judiciary while he's the Prince of Wales, which he's obviously not willing to do. Okay, and head of the Order of the Garter is in fact that, and he was in fact the head guy of it. And that's a Freemasonic order based in Freemason's house in London. And we knew that. And I called him his most mercurial magistrate. Okay? So you know what I mean? It's a personal relationship. I got under his skin a little bit, but it was a friendly gesture. A comic author called Toby, who wrote Vibration 13, for the Future King.
I haven't seen a copy of this.
You've seen the one of Teriyaki? No, that was later.
Oh, was it later? Right.
It was the difficult second album. It never got finished.
I didn't even know this existed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's what Vibration 13 is. Like, Vibration 13 is extremely esoteric. Yeah, I've still got the original somewhere.
How come you stopped, English, I mean, mostly...
And I'm too good at it in the sense that the magic of making stories, writing it down, making pictures, having it link from page to page, and then sending it to someone who's in it. It's so powerful a mechanism that I decided to put it down for a bit. I believe I've heard the name.
There's a few of her albums which had, I think it's, I could be wrong, but I think, do you know Seth, the cartoonist?
I don't know.
I think Canadian.
Let's keep it off references. References.
Okay, yeah. The reason I'm specifically cycling back to explain why I'm bringing this up, in the sleeve of the album cover of one of our albums, there's sort of comic book that makes up the sleeves. It's like, the front album art is in a panel, but then as you flick through it, this sort of, has more depictions that kind of work in the lyrics of the songs. It's a really nicely designed thing, and the reason why I'm saying this is because, I don't know, I also just think that there's a spirit and a specificity, as you said, you're good with a pen, and there's also something of your personality that kind of naturally somehow comes onto the page in that way that I imagine could complement the music quite wonderfully.
Yeah, and maybe you're right.
Physical object with a sleeve notes that has something of you in it, would be, I think, really.
Yeah, I think what happened is I got digitized, and digital culture took over. I got digitized. That's why I don't ink anymore, because I lost my connection to the analog world.
It becomes kind of a bit more rarefied because of that, maybe. But I also wonder if, it's really interesting that you say that, because, when I was spending a lot of time illustrating, and particularly when I was studying and hanging out with a lot of illustrators, I was realizing that one of the reasons that a lot of my classmates were illustrators was that they use illustration or drawing or working with a pen as a way of dealing with the world. And then it's sort of this meditative way to kind of channel things into reality.
When I wrote Vibration 13, when I wrote Vibration 13. I was living with my dad in Ireland in a place called the Nook of Keswood, beyond the Nook of Cranny. Tirnanog, County Kilrush. County Clare.
It's like a Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
And that's where we live. I mean, we've got mail there.
Beautiful.
Okay. So I lived in the realm of fairy when I wrote it with my dad, and like weird things happening, like a crow came down the chimney and like explained things through geometry by which it flew.
Normal Russians, most of, like the vast majority of whom are like under the bread line, very poor. And we're playing into the rhetoric that Putin is stating, which is that the West wants to fuck with you. And I was just like, could we just like be more creative about this? Like, so instead of depriving like mothers who need like you know products to keep their kids alive of that stuff in order to somehow pressure Putin, who's obviously a fucking maniac who does not give a fuck what is happening.
Well, you're a neighbour. You live in West London, right? You're a neighbour of Putin's daughter, bruv. Okay? So London has got a particular price to pay in capitulating to the oligarchs.
Can I tell you my solution?
Go on.
Not a solution, but a creative kind of idea. Was more like to say, okay, instead of not sending the toilet paper, print propaganda on the toilet paper, or rather propaganda, like just sort of truth, like print journalism. Like in a country like Russia, where that isn't available to a lot of people, could be incredibly huge. And also, if you're actually interested in deposing Putin, that has to come from the people of the country. It goes back to kingship. The idea that the only people who can actually depose a king are its people. Otherwise, you just create a motherfucker, and you just like make a fucking war that like is just going to be.
Exactly. And that's why Putin's still alive, because he could have been
killed.
Say again.
That's why Putin is still alive, because he could have been killed.
Who could have been killed?
Putin, yeah. We've had lots of opportunities since he started this thing to just take him out, but we haven't. I'm talking about Britain.
Well, I don't think anybody wants to start a nuclear war.
No, I would rather not. So we need to create solutions, please. Supporting Ukraine in the manner that I am. I don't know if you're aware of...
This is the new one. It's an edit. It's fucking trippy as fuck, mate.